Well, here we are with another video with my lovely voice on it and my lovely self, not something I do very often, uh, showing off my oil painting today. This is a painting that I started a couple of years ago and decided to pick it back up after I didn't care much for it originally, but I've got some ideas to make it interesting, finish it up. I've already worked on it the last 2 weekends, but I mentioned it to some of the folks in my writing community. Talk more about writing a little bit. And everyone said I should show off some of my process, some of the things that I am doing. I'd like to get into selling these oil paintings. I've done painting for a very long time. I've done some pastel. I've done um, acrylics as well. Sometimes I still do acrylic. It's a little faster. But I really like oils, even though they take a really long time. So I don't know how easy it will be to sell oil paintings. I need to do a lot more of them to make it sort of any sort of viable business. But just getting it out in the world is nice too, and that's in part what this video is about. So I'm working on some depth. I'm going to add a rover in the background and adding some tracks as it's driving away from us. The astronaut will be the last thing that I do. He was originally more complete, and I've actually removed parts of him because he's out of proportion. One of the things I didn't like about this painting is I just kind of got the torso too tall, the legs were too short, kind of stubby almost, and so I want to fix it. I want to try to make it a little bit better. You can see here that I'm going over kind of a little bump. There was originally a crater here, and the crater was really out of proportion as well. But I kind of covered things up, and that sort of left some textures in the painting. And that's one of the things I like about oils. You get nice texture from the paint. They can really add something the to the final product. So we're kind of adding here. Now of course, I'm annoyed at myself because I'm looking at this, and this is obviously voiceover later on. I tried to do some commentary while I was painting. I found that difficult to concentrate. I'm bad at voiceovers as it is, but um, I'm a little bit annoyed because I feel like the tracks are too close together, and so I'm probably gonna do some more covering, maybe move them a little further apart, or maybe I'll just decide it's a one person buggy. I don't know. Even at a one person buggy, it's kind of they're still pretty close together. I think it'll still need a little bit of work, but hey, that's the fun thing of doing this. It's not too hard to cover things up. Oil paints are pretty forgiving. They take a while, but you have to let the layers dry. But I can get it exactly the way I want. So here I've switched to a finer brush. I'm doing some of the far away detail, kind of in the area that our uh, rover will be later on. I'm going to make it look more like there's a large crater in the background, kind of wavy land. So you can see sort of the tracks are kind of disappearing, they kind of fall off, and then they kind of reappear further into the background. As we get further on, I'll add some shadows here in a few minutes. I did mention uh, that I am doing some writing. I'm working on a novel series, and this painting was originally a scene from the novel. The scene in the novel has actually changed, so that's kind of fun, and it's changed enough that it wouldn't have made sense to completely just paint over this painting. But I do plan to do another painting that will be more in line with the scene in the novel at some point. But I still think this is a fun and interesting piece of work with our astronauts standing on this yellow planet. Here I had worked with a fine detail and I decided to go back to that larger brush, but I had already dunked it in my mineral spirits. And so off to the side here, I am cleaning it up um, to go back to doing some more work in the foreground. I'd mix some more paint. That's why I was holding the knife there. I use a lot of old T-shirts for cleaning up my knife, cleaning up my brushes. I have jars of mineral spirits floating around. So yeah, you can see here I'm widening them. I realized they weren't wide enough. I just didn't think about how close together they are. Oh well, we'll make that work. We'll see. I'm going to add a little more definition to the bump. Kind of contemplating how this looks. Um, Also, hey dummy, you've got those too close together. But no, 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 too late now. I am not a time traveler, as much as I would like to be sometimes. Kind of making it so it looks like the wheels kind of slipped a little bit. I'll be doing more detail on these as we go along. Um, and this won't be done today. I mean, this takes time to do these layers. Um, I'll probably do a follow up video, maybe two. We'll see. I say that I'm going to do new videos, and then I don't do them um, because I'm busy doing a million other things. YouTube is not, I'm not making any money off of YouTube, so it's fun to sort of show off what I'm doing. Maybe gain some more followers, especially as I do want to sell my writing. That's probably as far as selling things, it's probably the most viable option aside from my tech job, which I'm continuing to do. Uh, on that note, I'm actually working on a writing tool to help writers get better feedback. Uh, I'm swimming upstream, and we talk. The whole world is going AI. We're trying to go against AI a little bit as creators. We don't believe. Well, I will say AI is interesting. Also, that it shouldn't be called AI. It's a silly marketing term. Um, what's being advertised as AI is large language models, which are very interesting technology. Uh, they're great in tech. They're great for coding. They're great for summarizing large log files, which is something I use them for quite often. But they're not as great for creating. They can't think on their own. They can't create anything new. They're just blending parts of data that they've received, and the biggest problem with that, is that the data that they've gotten is from copyrighted sources, and the creators were not compensated. So, um, and I know there's arguments out there that, well, that's how humans do things. We see art, we use that sort of art to generate our own ideas. And I think there's some truth to that, but I think that I think as people, as humans, we can create new things. We can create ideas that haven't been seen before. Anyway, off track there. So here I have um, got some brown, paint some dark brown, and then I'm using that to add the shadow. So we're shadowing our little pothole here. One thing I like to do is, I cover this palette. Now, first of all, uh, please don't shame me for my palette. It's a mess. I don't organize my palette very well. I try to keep light colors together, and that's about it. If you look at the palette behind my head here, it just needs to be scraped off and restarted. It is pretty horrible at this point. Um, but one thing I do is I'll cover the palette, usually with some plastic wrap, saran wrap, and the oils don't dry. I mean, they don't dry very quickly. And sometimes they'll form kind of a layer of dry paint over the top, but they'll still be viable underneath. And so usually a little bit of linseed oil and um, a bunch of mixing with the knife will get them going again, so the paint can be used and doesn't go to waste. It's good for me to do this. It also keeps me painting more. I know I've messed up if I get my palette out and it's completely dry, because that usually takes 3 weeks for my palette to be 100% dry, where the paint just needs to come off of it. But at this point, the whole thing probably needs to be soaked in some mineral spirits and scraped off, just kind of cleaned up a little bit. Um, I like wooden palettes better, but I find they're just nearly impossible to sort of get paint off of them later. It kind of gets into the wood. Um, I guess it's not a horrible thing. They're not really going to mix at that point, but I do have some wooden palettes as well. Using, but I've been using the plastic one recently. Uh, Apologies for the camera work. I didn't realize you couldn't quite see the bottom. When I make another one of these, I'll see if I can do something a little bit better. I thought about doing a vertical video, especially since this is kind of a vertical painting, but I wanted to sort of show off, me selecting brushes, selecting paints. I mean, you may not be able to see it all that well, but it works. It works okay. Also, I'm not like a TikTok guy, not really an Instagram guy. A little concerned about posting things to those platforms. Again, not sure if the AI is going to come and sort of steal my content. And that's probably happening on YouTube as well, so I don't know. But yeah, we're keeping landscape for now. It's fine. I have a larger painting I'm working on. If I do a video on it, will have to be landscape for sure. I do like large paintings. I like fine detail on large paintings. Of course, it takes forever to get everything right, but uh, they do come out really nice. Um, Speaking of my tool set, the holder I have all my stuff in is actually a silverware holder, like an antique silverware holder. My brother-in-law found that and he refinished it. It's beautiful, and he lined it and everything with some rubber matting in there to protect the wood. And it's perfect for holding all my stuff, and even my palette fits perfectly in it on top. So I put all the paints and the jars of linseed oil and most of my brushes and everything in there, and and I put the palette on top, and I can just close it up. In fact, tomorrow, my parents have the first oil painting I did. It's actually a painting of them on a boat. I should maybe I'll do a little bit of videoing of it tomorrow. It's a complete painting, but my dad reframed it and noticed that at the edge there are places where I just didn't get the paint kind of really soaked into the canvas. It was my first one. I didn't have a whole lot of experience. So I'm actually taking, we're going to go over there tomorrow for Easter lunch. I'm going to take all the paints, take my tools, all wrapped up in my silverware, my silverware holder, and take them out over there to repair little parts of that painting. See if we can make it a little bit better. So at least so that the edges don't have white. But I know when I was looking at that painting, there were a few other mistakes I might try to correct as well. Another thing I did recently was I had well, well, I'll back up. In uh, to help out in not repayment, what's the word? In appreciation of my brother-in-law making this beautiful um, holder for all my paint. I had told him I would do a painting for him, and he and I just we don't get to see each other very often. He doesn't live close, so um, and I've been incredibly busy, but I did do a painting for him. It's a painting of a coffee. My parents had brought me back some coffee from Tanzania. So backstory on that: my parents are missionaries. They're retired for the most part, but they do still do mission trips from time to time. I actually spent time in Africa as a kid, But this lovely coffee packaging that just says Kilimanjaro, and it has the Mount Kilimanjaro on it, just kind of stylized with some just neat. It's just very neat. It's a very neat thing. I'll probably show it on the channel at some point. You can find it um, some of my social media. Um, anyway, I did a painting of that, and planning to deliver that to him soon. It was going to be his Christmas present, and here we are in April. It has not not gotten delivered. I also have some Tanzanian coffee for him. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the same packaging. That would have been really awesome, but that was not available when I ordered Tanzanian coffee. I guess the brand that my parents picked up was only available in country. Um, that wasn't really an option for me to go get it. But well, anyway, I've been rambling. So here I'm actually adding kind of the first layer of what will be kind of the tread and the shadow. I'm adding some shadows to this tread. And I'm probably going to do several of these shadows and highlights. I think that the end result is going to be really neat looking. It looks kind of funky here. It doesn't look great yet, but I promise it's not. This is not the final result. I'm going to be cleaning this up, working on it more. I say cleaning it up. I mean, it's just going to get added to. Um, Going for the effect of kind of these tires that have torn up the sort of sandy material that we have on this planet. This yellow regolith. It's kind of a moonscape, but it's yellow. Maybe it's made of cheese. I don't know. It'd probably have to be powdered cheese, though. That's kind of what I'm thinking. As you can see, I use a lot of t-shirts. Um, useful, useful material, cotton t-shirts. And so here I am deciding what I'm going to do next, and I'm pulling out my yellow. And this is where I'm gonna get rid of that shadow. It's funny, the shadow in the background was even darker than this. I've already gone over it once. That's how dark it was. Um, it just needs some more layer to get over the top. And don't worry, shadows are going to come back. I'm just going to do them a little more in proportion, kind of going off into the background. I mean, if you look at moon pictures, you can see how it does look like there's not much background to them, but the shadows will go very long, especially if the sun is low. And so in this scene, I'm thinking the star is lower in the sky. We're gonna extend that shadow out, but make it smaller as though it's going into the distance, and maybe kind of stop where our little crater starts. Probably add a little more definition to that crater going into the background behind the astronaut. I didn't get that done today. I worked on this for a while. I don't work on these all that long. When I've cut this down a little bit, where I sort of sat and thought or messed with things, but I tend to paint 45 minutes to an hour, um, especially as you're getting into, as the first bit of the canvas is all filled and you're doing these layers. There's not much more I can do. I don't want to blend paint, right? Like I get, I've done that before where sort of you just start painting over things. The paint sort of kind of blends together and makes a mess. I find that it's much better definition to be patient, let the layers dry, come back over on the top. Unless you want a mix, I mean there is some techniques that you're mixing paint on the canvas. I tend not to do that. I used to do that. I do it with acrylic, um, but but I find this method with oil paint just having a lot of patience, building in lots of texture, just makes a much better painting. I should say I'm not really trained in this. It's just something I started doing. I took art in high school, a little bit in college, but I've done things on my own. It's a very Gen X thing, I guess, to figure it out on my own. Just experiment, see what works. I do the same thing with cooking. So, oh, well, getting into the additional hobbies. Although cooking's not really a hobby, I just do it. Mrs. Cfreak is not exactly a cook, so I do most of the cooking, and that's fine. I enjoy it. But my cooking is a lot like my painting. I just experiment, come up with things. Also, my mother is a fantastic cook. She taught me lots of stuff, so I did have an expert in that case, I guess. So here we go. I'm kind of covering up the feet some more. I'm going to move the feet up. Move the astronaut's kind of moving up the canvas a little bit. His head was kind of in the right spot, but his torso was so long and his legs were so short. So at the end of this, the well, not the end of this video, but once I'm done with this painting, his legs will be actually be a little bit longer. They're going to come up a little higher. His torso will be in better proportion as a person. Look, I'm still trying to decide what exactly I'm going to do with his arms. I have some ideas, but I don't give them away yet. Partly because that might not be the final product, and partly because, watch the next video and find out, assuming I make one. Another thing I'll do eventually is add footprints. He is going to be walking from the distance towards us, so that's another piece that I'll be doing. But I needed to get rid of that shadow before I added those footprints in. And I think I got it now. Like looking at the video, it it's kind of there. I think it'll blend in as I add the new shadows. Um, I actually have the painting in the room right now. I'm kind of looking at it. It looks like it's covered pretty well. So I had some problems here with getting brushes back into the holder. This takes up most of the time. Is me messing with the brush holder, me messing with the paints, or me just sitting contemplating, looking at the painting, trying to decide what I do, and still missing them. The tracks are too close together. I'm not going to let myself live that down. It's silliness. And we're still missing. See, I cut a bunch of this, but I figured, hey, you can kind of see the process here. Sometimes it's just a matter of looking at things, messing with stuff, trying to figure out what brush I'm going to use. Um, this is where I used some linseed oil. I had a bunch of white on the palette, and just pouring it in there, getting it mixed back up. Well, I was looking to see how dry it was. Now I'm getting out the linseed oil. I like to take the knife and make sure it's clean and just kind of stick it down in the linseed oil and just get a few drops, depending on how much paint I have. I used to just pour it on there, but I that often get too much. You don't need a ton. You need a few drops for your dollop of paint. Linseed oil also linseed oil kind of slows things down. The lichen speeds it up in terms of drying. Uh, I like linseed oil because it makes the paint go further. Like if I'm using new paint out of the tube, especially. So aside from just revitalizing paints on the palette, you can use it to make the paint go further, kind of spread it out more on the canvas. It kind of gives it a little bit of a it gives it a little bit different color as well, a little more sheen. And you can kind of see that I used more linseed oil in a lot of the backgrounds. Um, I probably need to clean that up a little bit. Like some of it's kind of got some sheen, and other parts of it don't. So some of the space in this. I thought about doing like a star, but I ended up getting rid of it. I didn't like it. It didn't look good, and it didn't make sense for the way the shadows are flowing in this painting. So um, I instead I moved it away. So here, this is the final thing that I'm working on today. Just adding a little bit of a little rover here in the background. Um, and for today, it'll just be kind of a rover shaped blob. It's not very big anyway, so it's not ever going to be much more than a rover shaped blob, but it'll have a little more definition in the end. But we're just adding the white. It's going to be a white rover. Um, and I'll probably go over it with gray. We'll add some black wheels, and then probably more white to try to highlight it out. if you have it. Um, well, I love doing highlights. I love light. You can kind of see. I did a little bit in the mask of the astronaut there originally. I'm gonna make that even better. Try to clean up that color a little bit. There we go. Yeah. Inspecting my rover, trying to decide if I like it or not. Like the shape, and that's really all we're getting right now is a bit of shape to it. And that's pretty much the end. I'll spare you the cleanup, which is the last thing I tend to do. And then you get to hear my voiceover. We're almost back to now. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks. Hope you enjoyed it.